So Ohio State just visited the White House, and that has kind of been the talk of the news over the last few days, but the real news is that the spring game just happened, and fans for the first time kind of got to see the QB competition between Julian Sayin and Kienholz up close. And from everything we have seen and heard, Julian Sayin looks like the frontrunner to be the starter. He just has the it factor, and it showed up quickly when he got behind center. I know if you look at the numbers from the game, they look very similar and nobody stands out there, but just from presence and command, Julian stole the show. He looked a lot more comfortable, the offense flowed better, and Julian was able to make pretty much any throw from anywhere on the field. In this video, I want to talk about some of the key takeaways from the spring game and just everything going on with the Buckeyes right now. But before I begin, I would really appreciate it if you would drop a like and subscribe. It only takes 5 seconds, plus you can always change your mind. We are on the road to 50,000 subscribers, and with your support, I believe that we can get there super fast. And also, with the NBA playoffs coming up and football right around the corner, I have a special offer for you guys. I know tickets can be super expensive these days, so if you create an account with Vivid Seats, you can get $20 off any order of $200, which is basically what tickets go for anyways, by using promo code Premier20 at checkout. So go take advantage of that the next time you get sports tickets. I put my link in the description, and I will also pin a comment. Again, that is code Premier20 for $20 off any order. Alright, so like I mentioned in the intro, Julian Sayin really stole the show in Ohio State's spring game. And it's just great to see some quarterback competition in a world where players instantly transfer the moment they have to actually step up and earn something. So shout out to both Kienholz and Sayin, and it's going to be fun to follow this battle over the next few months. Alright, so like I mentioned in the intro, one thing that may have stood out a bit that favored Kienholz in the spring game is that he has just been around the team and the offense for longer, so he kind of has a better feel for how Ryan Day likes things to be done. But as Day mentioned, Lincoln cannot afford to become complacent, and he cannot afford to think he has an edge because of experience. The most talented QB is going to be behind center week 1, and the one who makes the best throws and performs the best will be the one that Day puts his trust in. And like I've already said way too many times, Sayin seems to be that guy now, despite the rumors that were coming out a few weeks ago. Here's what Ryan Day had to say about what he saw from his QBs in the spring game.
I felt like, Lincoln settled down after the first drive or so, made some nice throws. But I thought Julian, for the most part, early on was in rhythm and moved the team down the field for a couple touchdowns, which was good. Made some nice throws. There's certainly a lot to grow from, and this is why we did this. You can see it was a fairly significant emphasis on throwing the ball to see how the quarterbacks were going to respond, and so we'll use this as another evaluation tool because right from the jump, from when we got off the bus to when we just finished there, I'm glad we did this. I'm glad we did the spring game. I wasn't sure, but it was definitely the right thing to do. I wish we could have stayed out there for another 4 hours and gotten these reps and getting these guys some work. On defense, the guys were very, very vanilla. You can see it was really 2 coverages all day and 1 front, which is not what we saw all spring. I felt like for the most part, we got a chance to have some film to evaluate, see how the quarterbacks handled themselves in front of the crowd, and kind of go from there and build from it. So what we'll do next week is we have our post-spring evaluations for all guys and go through and figure out what they did well and what they need to improve on as we head into the summer.
All right, moving on. Now let's take a look at some of the other positions and what those guys did. Obviously, everything I say and all the evaluations I make have to be taken with a grain of salt because the defense was not going full throttle, it was very vanilla, and team scrimmages are just not intense for obvious reasons. It's more about getting the concepts down and all that sort of stuff. But anyways, the completeness of Ohio State's offensive skill talent was on full display in the spring game. Second unit wide receivers Mylan Graham and Quincy Porter had big outings, particularly Graham, who collected 4 receptions for 104 yards and a touchdown. At running back, Bo Jackson, which is just so funny to say, gobbled up 88 yards in just 13 carries, as Sam Williams-Dixon also impressed behind starters James Peoples and CJ Donaldson. Ohio State averaged 5.9 yards per carry in the spring game and got significant push up the middle. Not just from its starting trio of Luke Montgomery, Carson Hinsman, and Tegra, but from its second and third interior offensive line groupings as well. The further the offseason goes, the more this position group feels like a major strength for the Buckeyes. The guys who returned, Luke and Carson and Tegra, those guys, I think they're feeling more comfortable with what we're doing, Day said after the game. We'll have to assess all that and figure out exactly what the evaluation is. That will all be explained to them during post-spring, but good to have guys that have played. They obviously played good enough to win a national championship last year. That's good, but that's not our expectations. Our expectations are that these guys are all Americans and first rounders. That's why they're here. That's what they want to be. Sticking with the offensive line briefly, just like at each of Ohio State's practices, which are open to the media this spring, Sierra Veld opened with the first team unit at right tackle. He was named an Iron Buckeye for the changes he made to his body this offseason. There is a real possibility that the Buckeyes' best starting five up front places the redshirt sophomore at right tackle. Now for the linebackers, there might be no coach who's glowed about a player more than James Laurinaitis has glowed about Peyton Pierce this spring. Pierce's spring game performance highlighted why. He was all over the field, blowing up screen passes, disrupting the running game, and flexing his wrestling background by knocking over offensive linemen, but Sony Styles was a consistent backfield invader during his limited series too, and fellow starting linebacker Arvell Reese was no slouch. So that was the good, but now for the bad. As the interior offensive line looked imposing during the spring game, the interior of Ohio State's defensive line looked porous in turn. Starters Caden McDonald and Edric Houston held their own, but once the next wave of defensive tackles came on, massive running lanes were opening for the Buckeyes' backs. Transfer portal help is probably needed to give those top two a rest without a drop off in play. I think we've got to take a hard look at it, Day said, of adding defensive linemen from the portal. I don't think I have the answer right now, but we've got to look at it. It seemed to me like there was just a lot of knockback on the offensive side of the ball here, but then again, I don't want to make any judgments until I watch the film. Also, the complexities of Patricia's scheme and the various personnel groupings he'll employ were kept under wraps on Saturday, as Ohio State stuck to its base 4-2-5 looks with traditional safeties and nickels with no exotic schemes. On defense, the guys were very, very vanilla, Day says, as I already mentioned earlier. Now moving on, let's talk about the Buckeyes visiting the White House. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because I thought it was very cool to see. It was a great experience for the guys. It was a great reward for the guys with everything they had accomplished and everything they have done. And I am just so tired and fed up with how everyone makes everything so political. I'm not saying you have to agree with who's in office, but you have to respect the president. I saw Ohio State on Instagram posted their picture with Donald Trump, with Jack Sawyer holding the Trump jersey and all that, and there was like 5,000 comments with people screaming and just making a big deal over something that is not a big deal. It's just a tradition. Every team that wins a championship across any sport always visits the White House. I know the Warriors didn't go, but still, it is an honor to go to the White House. I don't care if you don't agree with who's in office. I don't care if you don't agree with anything. It is just stupid how people can find a way to complain about that. Good for Ohio State. I'm glad they went. What an experience. I know JD Vance kind of broke the trophy or whatever. That was kind of funny, but nonetheless, it was cool to see them get that experience, and we will probably never see a team as good as them again, but hopefully the Buckeyes can repeat in 2025, because with Jeremiah Smith, I think anything is possible. But yeah, I'm sorry, maybe I didn't make sense there, but I had to go on that rant because it is just so frustrating. I cannot stand when people bring politics into sports, because visiting the White House is an honor. I don't care. But that's really all I have to say for this video. Thank you all so much if you made it to this point. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe and hit that bell so you never miss another upload. Also, make sure to take advantage of that Vivid Seats offer. Remember, the code is Premier20. And until next time, I will see you all later.